Hey, this is attorney Elizabeth Potts-Weinstein, and today we're going to review some legal form services. If you have decided to DIY starting up your business, there are some contracts and other forms that you're going to need to legally set up your business and run your business. Specifically, we're going to be looking at LLC operating agreements and maybe also some independent contractor agreements for any contractors you plan to hire. There are many ways you can get free contracts online by just Googling things. Are those actually valuable? Are those a good idea for you to use? And then there's also a bunch of actual services where you can pay for agreements. So we're going to look at some of what comes up when you just Google these kind of agreements. And then we're also going to look at some of the form services that you could use. So let's say I just Google LLC Operating Agreement. And let's say I just Google that. So what comes up? Some services that you can pay for, RocketLawyer, LegalZoom, etc. And some free LLC operating agreements is the first non-ad. So let's click on that and see what comes up. And this is one of those places where you can create a document, and then they also have different documents that are available. This is from somewhere called eforms.com. So one of the things that I want you to think about when you're looking for forms online is in the United States, contract law and operating agreements and all these other agreements are under contract law is not federal or national law. It is state law. So it is the contract law of California or New York or Nevada or whatever it is. And which law applies is a whole thing, okay? Like people have lawsuits about which law applies. But generally speaking, if you're an LLC formed in California and you're located in California, then it's going to be California law most likely that will apply to something like an operating agreement. If you're located in California, but your LLC is formed in Nevada, the operating agreement you'll probably have be under Nevada law. So that's what I mean is you have to really think about which law should apply, but the laws can be different. So for example, for LLC operating agreements, there's laws about how operating agreements work and how LLCs work. And those acts are different from state to state. They're very similar, but they're a little bit different. So when you're looking for a contract, including an LLC operating agreement, you want it to be about the state where you want the law to apply, which is usually going to be the state where you formed it for an operating agreement at least. So that's one of the things here. When you just do a random search, then you're going to get it for a particular place. So this is for a California LLC operating agreement. If I just click on operating agreement templates, then it actually talks about the states. Another thing that is obvious here on this website is you can see that it has a single member operating agreement or a multi-member. So usually for most of my clients, when there's just one person who is running the LLC, who owns the LLC, I have a different kind of agreement than if there's multiple, because there's a whole bunch of stuff that is just weird and awkward and doesn't apply if you only have one owner. What percentage of voting rights do you have? You have 100%. So you don't need to talk about how all the voting is going to work really because it's just you. There's things like that just don't apply. But if you create a single member operating agreement where you leave all that stuff out and then you bring in another owner, you're going to need a whole new operating agreement. So it just depends on what your plans are. So one thing I just wanted to actually note is that in California, you are required to have an operating agreement, but it doesn't have to be written. So I actually wanted to clarify that. It can be an oral operating agreement. That's why online you'll see things that says California requires an operating agreement. And even on the website for the Secretary of State of California, it says that an LLC is required to have an operating agreement. It doesn't need to be in writing, which is a weird little distinction, but I think it's very important for you to have one that is in writing either way, because otherwise who in the heck knows even what it was, because it was just an oral agreement and those are incredibly difficult to prove and create a large amount of confusion and litigation. You don't want that. Even with yourself, because you want to honor the corporate formalities of your business. And I did a video that will be up or is already up when you've watched this video about honoring the corporate formalities. So another thing I wanted to say, for those of you who are using a lawyer or some kind of service to set up your LLC, an operating agreement template may be included, or even a written operating agreement that the person drafts for you. Custom, it may be included. This is not something that gets filed with the state. This is something that you keep, but in your own files. But you may already have this as part of something you paid for. So I'm going to assume that you're not getting this as something you paid for and you need one because you've just created the LLC yourself. So the first place we're going to look at is Nolo. Nolo Publishing is a very good place to get books about various things for your business or other legal things. I found that their stuff generally is high quality and is actually like their legal books are actually written by lawyers. So that's a very good source for you. Now, Nolo has legal forms that you can use. We're going to look at operating agreement for an LLC and see what they have here. I think you have to pay for their forms. So their LLC operating agreement says is $99. It is an online form. Let's click on it and see what else comes up. You can create, save, and edit the form before you buy it. You just set up a Nolo account. No, I do not want a pop-up. So let's just go ahead and type this in and see what happens. So we're going to have EPW Media. This is a company that doesn't exist right now. LLC, or I'm not going to put that there. And it's called LLC. Next. What state? Let's just say we formed it in California. What is this purpose? So this is something that you can put what your business plans to do. I actually usually don't put that. They have helpful information. I actually usually for my businesses put any purpose allowed under the act of the state. This is a single member, so we're not only going to get that. Spouse, it's interesting that they have one specifically for spousal single members. That's probably a very good idea because community property states create complexities if two people who are married to each other own a business together. Who are the members and what are their contributions? I'm going to put myself, Elizabeth Weinstein, and cash. I'm going to put $1,000. I'm going to put today. How many managers will there be? So this is kind of interesting that they say managers, like it's like they're requiring you to have managers, but you actually aren't required to have this. But I'm just going to put one. And still me. How will the managers vote to make management decisions? This doesn't even really make sense for one owner, but that's fine. If there's nobody, the person who can act as a manager. So this isn't something that I usually put in here. How will the LLC handle financial decisions? What vote is required to approve distribution of LLC profits to the member? Will LLC use your cash or accrual? Cash. Taxed as a sole proprietor. Ending in December. So I think then to print it, you have to pay money. Yeah. Okay. So one of the things here is I can't actually see it before I have to pay for it, which is I'm not a huge fan of, just in the sense of like, I have no idea if this is, I can't actually opine if this is actually good. And I'm not paying for it right now. This has things in it that I actually wouldn't necessarily put in an operating agreement because they're assuming that your manager manage, and you may have filed this as member manage, and then therefore this isn't going to apply to you. So something to be aware of is the operating agreement or whatever contract actually appropriate for your situation? It may not be. It may not be what you want. So let's go ahead and look at another. Let's look at LegalZoom. LegalZoom is one of the big companies that you're going to get tons of ads about. So let's look at business, contracts and agreements. Let's look at operating agreement. I don't actually see it in any of these things. All right, LLC operating agreement. Okay, operating agreement pricing. They give you two different options. Standard is $99, creation of the operating agreement, peace of mind review, which is what? That is, it uses technology and people to check your work for missing info and discrepancies. It doesn't say it uses lawyers, just people. I don't know what that means. Or you can have rush, where you get it in 2 to 3 business days after expedited processing, which is still not actually that fast, considering this is a person actually writing this, or is it just a template? So I'm going to click on this just to see what happens. So it actually made me sign into it, which is annoying. All right, Form LLC. We formed it in California. EPW Media LLC, which is a made-up name. It has a save and continue up here and a continue down there. That's weird. What is your address? Are you a doctor, lawyer? No. Professional LLCs don't exist in California, so this makes no sense. I named my own registered agent. This is a business address for my law firm. So the other one actually didn't ask for an address, did it? Registered agent. It must be a street address. Einstein. Okay, continue. Would you like the ownership of the LLC to be percentage? Percentage I usually recommend because that's easier for LLCs because they're kind of like a partnership and it's usually how people think of it. How many people will be members, owners of the LLC? One by, and oh, this is good. So it says, how will the LLC be managed by a single member or by a manager? So this is something that you would want to be able to select for yourself. We'll have officers. I usually do that. So having a president and stuff, because it makes it easier when you're signing things to sign it as the president as opposed to as the member, because a lot of people don't understand what that is. But president sounds legit. Who are the initial members? Elizabeth Weinstein, $1,000, 100%. Elizabeth Weinstein, president. So are the ownership interests freely transferable? So a lot of times when you have a business that has multiple owners, who it's as an LLC and it's there's just 2 or 3 owners, you don't want one of the other owners selling their half of the business to like some random person. And now you're in business with a random person, right? So you'd put some kind of restriction. In this case, I'm the only owner of this hypothetical business, so I can just put that it's really transferable because it would be awkward otherwise. The end of the fiscal year is December 31st, which is usually what you're going to do, but not always. A business activity, whatever, we're going to do consulting. It says the rush is the best value, which I highly disagree. It'll be prepared and shipped within 2 business days. They're going to ship it as a paper? That's weird. You don't need your written operating agreement to be in writing in the sense that someone mails it to you. You need to print it out and sign it, but actually you could e-sign it. It doesn't have to be printed. Like, it doesn't need to be a piece of paper. I think one thing is people like the idea of having kind of formal things in like a binder with a seal and all that stuff. There's nothing wrong with that, but you are not required to have that. It can be a PDF that you e-sign, or you can just print it on your own printer. So let's say we do standard. That's why it takes so long, because they have to ship it. Okay, complete your order and you have to put in your information. Oh, and they're going to send it to you with like all this like formality. So the thing is, you may really want some formal thing that's printed and has a seal and all this jazz, but you don't need that. And it's actually better for you to have an electronic copy of your operating agreement, because then you can make changes later and create an amendment and you have it right there and you can email it to a lawyer for them to review. You don't want it to just be on a piece of paper. You want it to have the electronic copy as well. Now, for a lot of my clients, I do recommend printing it out and signing it with a pen so they actually sign it. It is very common to create an operating agreement that no one signs. It's very common to have a joint venture agreement and a contractor agreement, all those agreements, and no one signs it. It is almost worthless. Not 100% worthless, but almost worthless. Waste of your time. All right, let's look at another one. USLegalForms. That's one that comes up a lot when you do searches. Co-ownership form agreement. I don't know why this is the first thing that comes up. That's fine. Let's figure out business. No, I don't want a formation package. I just want LLC Operating Agreement. Okay, here we go. Okay, approximately 14 pages. Allows for vesting of management. The LLC members are a designated manager. Manager elects to manage a company. Allows officers to be appointed. All right, so California. First, we're going to click on that. Why is it a PLC? A professional LLC? Okay, so it's an instant download. Let's go ahead and look at the free preview. All right, sample LLC. Make changes for your purpose. Okay, operating agreement is entered into by these people for valuable consideration. So one of the things I just want to let you know is people think that words like for valuable consideration, the receipt and sufficiency is hereby acknowledged. The parties covenant, contract, and agree as follows. Covenant, contract, and agree are all the same word. Like, you don't need to say all 3 words. That's silliness. Stating that there is valuable consideration is not as good as actually having valuable consideration. It's better just to like have it, and you don't even have to state that you have it. People think that these formal words are like magic legal words, and I'm not saying that there aren't legal words you need to have, but a lot of times you're better off just actually doing the thing. For those of you who don't know, consideration means the only way you can have a legally binding agreement is if there's something of value that has been exchanged. So when you set up a business, you always want to put money into the business, even if it's like $50, but you want to put some money into the business that is part of your consideration, your legal consideration in setting up that business structure to make it legit. You probably want to put in more than $50. I typically put in like at least $100, if not $1,000. But you're going to have a whole bunch of expenses that are going to have to happen when you set up this business. And by putting in some money, it will be your capital contribution to show the business is legit, not just like a random hobby. But you may not have that kind of money, and then you may have to just put in a small amount or put in amounts as you go. So you form this LLC and you filed your articles of organization. The business will be this or any lawful business within California, which is the thing you want to say. Duration, fiscal year, initial members, who is going to run the business, managers or members. And you're going to talk about that. All the kind of voting things, who the officers are going to be. Do you have to put money into the business, profit and losses, voting, duties and limitations. It applies more if you're going to have multiple owners, but it would also apply to just one person too, some of the things in here. Members' interest terminating somebody for various different reasons, like if they've been declared incompetent, things like that. Dissolving the business. You can only sell if you give notice to other members and give them the right of first refusal, things like that. And then it doesn't give you all the pages because it wants to make sure that you pay for it, which you could have a package. So these forms actually go into things in a fair amount of detail here on US Legal Forms. I'm going to look at their little package and see what else you get. California LLC Operating Agreement. So if I wanted to buy this, what would it cost? Okay. So you can choose a plan. What if I just want to not have a subscription? Do I have to have a subscription? So US Legal Forms is subscription. And let's say we're going to do it monthly. Okay, so annual is $8 a month, but you have to pay annually. So it's not $8 a month. It's whatever 8 times 12 is, which I can't do in my head. If it's monthly, it's $39 a month. And then if you have premium, let's see, basic, you get access to all the 85,000 forms. You're not going to actually need that much. And a bunch of other, like just a lot of different forms. For the premium, you also get an online PDF editor and fillable form builder, and you can use an e-sign thing. And then you also get help for your will and things. Some of you having a will is all that you would need. Some of you actually would need a living trust, so you would need to hire an attorney for that. Let's see. Okay, so one thing I really like about US Legal Forms here is that you get your documents immediately. You don't have to wait for them in the mail. That's great. You also get a whole bunch of other things. So, this is fairly low priced. You're going to get a ton of different forms. You're not getting legal advice here, right? They're just leading you through literally filling out the form. So one of the big dangers of using form services as opposed to hiring a lawyer is that you don't even know what form you're supposed to use. You may not be filling it out correctly, etc. You have to really read this stuff and go through it and decide if it makes sense for you and your business. But it's better than not having an agreement, okay? Definitely better than not having one. As you can see, the prices are wildly different on different sites. It could be $100, it could be $39, $8 if you're doing the annual thing, but that's 8 times 12. It is $96. So that's a year for the basic. One of the things about operating agreements is, like I already told you, it needs to be state by state, and the sites that have state by state that's definitely good. What needs to be included and which terms you should have, that is a bit difficult because what you're going to need in your particular situation is different from business to business, person to person, who the owners are, etc. If you're a one owner business, it's not as vital. It's more that you have any specific terms. It's more that you have an operating agreement. If there's 2 or 3 owners or however many, then you're going to need to have some things in there to think about the potential problems that you're going to have in your LLC. If you all don't get along in the future, if someone wants to leave, if someone dies, etc., what's going to happen? And that needs to be decided ahead of time to the extent possible. All right, let's look at RocketLawyer. Okay, we're going to look at RocketLawyer. Let's see, they're really pushing tax stuff because it's tax season. So I'm going to click on LLC Operating Agreement, which is right there. It's a very common thing that people need. LLC Operating Agreement California. So EPW Media LLC in California. Can we skip this? I'm going to skip some of these things. It'll be effect today. Who type cash? $1,000. The registered agent, I'm skipping right now, so I have to type it. It'll operate indefinitely. One thing is you can have an LLC that is formed just for one purpose, that has an end date. That could be if you're buying real estate and then you're going to be flipping it and selling it and you're going to put the real estate in just one LLC. It could be for a joint venture deal where you're forming the LLC just for this project. Most of the time, it's going to be indefinite. If you add new members in the future, how will voting be? We're going to say proportional to the percentage. That's usually what I do. How often will distribute profits? Put annual. I don't like having to decide that ahead of time. It'll be member managed. It'll appoint officers. Fiscal end December. Is it requesting tax rate? We're going to say no for right now. All right, your operating agreement is ready for you. I had to sign in. So choose your trial. So your customized document defense, I have no idea what that is. Digital signatures, ask a lawyer your legal questions. What is the actual thing? Okay. By clicking yes, starting this, you'll be agree to be charged $5 today and then $40 a month for a RocketLawyer premium membership. What if I did this? And then, yeah, it's $40 a month for a premium membership, which is more expensive than the USLegalForms. I'm obviously not doing that. I don't get to see the form ahead of time. Let me go back and see if there's a way for me to kind of see the form. Sample LLC Operating Agreement. Okay. So here's a sample what they have in their operating agreement. So the operating agreement for a RocketLawyer, that's like their example. It has operating agreement, state of formation, operating agreement controls, address, registered agent, registered office, purpose, powers, duration, who the members are, contribution, what happens if the members are there, the members want to leave, then, oh yeah. So this will be the duties of the members. The members are agents for the business, how distributions work. I actually usually don't put in there that distributions are required because you may not want to make a distribution. And it has things about other laws in other states, which obviously doesn't make any sense. They may take that out though for a California agreement. This may just be a template overall. This is about managers, which you're not going to need a board of managers when you have one person most likely. But and then all this stuff about managers and the loyalty of the managers. And then this has things about having other officers like secretaries and treasurer and stuff like that, president, etc. What happens if there's a dissolution, if you need to shut the business down. Very important to plan for what happens when a termination, especially if there's multiple owners. If you're going to kick somebody out, how does that work? How disputes are. So this actually has some more language about disputes, like the fact that all members have been advised of the right to seek independent legal counsel before signing this agreement. So let's say you have 2 or 3 or more members. Even if you have a lawyer draft the contract, the lawyer represents the LLC, not the individual owners. And so the individual owners, if they want legal advice about whether or not they should sign this, they're supposed to get their own lawyer. On really big deals, this might happen, but on really small businesses, it usually doesn't. But it is something important to remember that if you hire a lawyer, the lawyer represents the business, not you. You may think of it as they're representing you, but they're not really. And it's difficult as a lawyer to communicate that to people where they understand, because it's kind of this weird legal thing. General provisions, what law applies, this kind of stuff, what the contributions the members are. Yeah, this is in Washington. You can have LLC with no voting rights. Yeah. Okay. So this is just an example of an LLC. You can see how their LLC agreements work. The question you're probably wanting me to answer is, which service should you use? It is very difficult unless I literally look at every contract that they have to tell you which one is the right solution for you. Where you have options like Nolo, where you're paying for each contract separately, that's going to end up being fairly expensive. And I also did not like how they didn't let you customize everything really to the extent that you needed. So while I do recommend Nolo's books, I don't know if I'd recommend using that service because I don't think it'd be cost effective if you're doing things yourself. I'm not a big fan of LegalZoom, if you've seen my other videos, mostly because they tend to nickel and dime you and raise the fees so much. And I think that they're charging way too much money for an operating agreement. I would look at one of these services like USLegalForms, RocketLawyer, something like that, if you're going to need a lot of contracts and you're going to be doing it yourself. The one thing that's good about these services is that they're drafting it for each state. However, you're going to have to make a lot of decisions for yourself. And you're going to have to read what they actually put in these forms and decide if it's appropriate for you. And it is difficult for me to answer which one is going to be the best because it does depend on your budget. They charge a little bit different. They're going to have different contracts that are in there. Let's do a little due diligence. For RocketLawyer and for USLegalForms. So as you know, if you've watched any of my other review videos, to do due diligence about companies to see who are they, if you have problems with them, how can you get help, etc. So let's look at USLegalForms. They've been helping people for more than 25 years, so they actually have been around for a while. And I'm going to scroll all the way down to who are they. All right, they have an address in Mississippi. That's just great. I love seeing actual addresses. They have a phone number that you can call. They have other sites for other kinds of aspects. So they have documents about a gazillion different things. So here you'd be looking at the small business incorporation formation. Okay, so who are these? Who is this company? Oh, about us. Here we go. Formed in 1997. They're celebrating 20 years, which that happened a while ago. And they have all kinds of different forms. They were founded by attorneys. Contact us. Can you get actual people? They have a little bot over here. And they have a phone number. So USLegalForms appears to be a legitimate business that has been around for a while. And then RocketLawyer, it's fine. Look at their stuff. RocketLawyer actually has divisions that are in other countries, which is helpful for those of you who may need contracts in other countries. So that's something to look at. About us, they have a phone number you can call. You can also chat with them. Okay. About us, they've helped all these people. I don't know who Charlie is, the owner, the founder and CEO. So the founder and CEO is an attorney. That's what Esquire means. I haven't used actually Esquire after my name in a very long time. Here you can actually see who their executive team is, their board of directors. So it's great that you can see pictures of people. I really like it when companies show who the owners are, who the executive team is, etc. They have investors, you can contact them, etc. So RocketLawyer is a legitimate business, and they're in San Francisco. So for these guys, one thing that I don't like about US Legal is I can't see who the actual people are who run the company. Whether or not RocketLawyer or USLegalForms is the right decision for you, I think you look at their websites, look at what their pricing is, what kind of other documents you need, do you need stuff in other countries, etc., and see which one just fits you better. Okay, interesting. So it looks like the owner of US Legal is a company called AirSlate, and they also have more complicated workflow creation things for like real estate and automated contracts and things like that are for, real estate agents and such. When I look at who they are on an About Us page for who actually owns that site on a higher level. All right. Oh, so this is AirSlate is the parent company. They have all these different things they own. Here's all their values. The very complicated website. There's all this stuff sliding in. Meet the team. So our leadership team. Here's our CEO, co-founder, and all these different people. You can see their LinkedIn, etc. So either of these companies, I would be comfortable with someone using. It's more which interface you like, which pricing fits for you, what services you need. And that's really the business decision, not as much of a legal decision. The main thing to think about is that when you use any legal form service to create contracts for you, they're not giving you legal advice unless you pay extra. And they might even offer that. You might have to have it reviewed by a lawyer if you actually want legal advice on what needs to go in your particular contract. Now, I specifically just looked at LLC operating agreements. I might do videos in the future where I look at the other kinds of contracts that they have. So generally speaking, if you just need forms that you can fill out and use, using one of these companies is probably going to be fine. However, if you want legal advice on what actually needs to go in these forms, then that's when you're going to need to hire an attorney to help you draft your contracts or at least review them. Again, this is attorney Elizabeth Potts-Weinstein. If you have any questions about what we talked about today, feel free to post them in the comments below and I'll try to point you in the right direction. Thumbs up if you found this video helpful. Subscribe for more videos like this. And then you can look in the description below where I talk about the Discord and the Patreon if you want to get even more stuff and more connection. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.